Hello, my name's Riley. I'm going to be presenting a high-level overview of DLL injection attacks from Module 6 of our Cybersecurity Ethical Hacking class. So let's get right on into it. So to start, what is a DLL file? Well, DLL stands for Dynamic Link Library, and paraphrasing Microsoft's own definition, it's a file that contains code functions and data that can be referenced or shared by different programs simultaneously within Windows. This comes in two different ways. There are system DLLs provided by Microsoft's Windows API, and this lets third-party app developers access common functions internal to Windows. Then there's going to be proprietary DLL files that are shared internally within program applications themselves. So in this case, for example, Discord or Google Chrome. How are DLL files created? Now, I believe it's important to touch on briefly this topic. So, when developers create an app, they write it in a programming language, and this code is referred to as its source code. When it's ready to ship or launch, that app's source code is compiled into a machine language known as assembly. The assembly code is then broken down into various individual DLL files alongside its main executable. So if we peek into a compiled DLL file using a program, in this case a reverse engineering tool named Ghidra, which, believe it or not, was developed and open source by the National Security Agency on GitHub for public download, we could see my own Windows kernel 32 DLL file here in Ghidra. I've opened an arbitrary function within it, and you can see the raw assembly code here on the right. So why do we even bother with DLLs? Microsoft's main reason is code reuse and efficient memory usage. When a program like Discord starts, Windows creates a process and loads its DLLs into RAM. Those DLLs can be pulled in or unloaded on demand, so our app only keeps what it actually needs inside of memory. Now that we know DLLs are a normal part of how Windows runs apps, DLL injection is what happens when an attacker abuses that same mechanism. An attacker forces a legitimate process to load a malicious DLL, so their code runs inside the victim's memory space as a post-exploitation technique, using the exact same dynamic loading the operating system relies on. This works so well because Windows can't always tell a legitimate DLL path from an attacker-supplied one. That gives the attacker stealth and, in some variants, persistence. There are many ways to pull this off. Talking about all of them is going to be outside the scope of this presentation. But in the end, they all end with malicious code running inside of a trusted process. I'm going to demonstrate a real-world example of a DLL injection on my own machine here. So I'm going to be using this GitHub practice benign DLL injection path method for runtime. So looking at our folder here, we're going to access that injection. And as you can see, that's going to not be compiled, so we're going to have to actually compile our code. Let's take a look at it inside Visual Studio. So this is our code, or source code, for our DLL. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and run command here, get that compiled. So I need to navigate, change directory, grab that path. Okay, and we're there. Now I'm going to run the compile.bat. Okay, so that compiled our C code. And now I have an injector.exe you see here. So I'm going to execute that. And before I do that, actually, since this is targeting Notepad, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the README. So you can see there's nothing there to start. Okay, now we'll run it. Okay, injection complete. Let's open up our Process Explorer and see and confirm whether or not we actually did inject. Okay, inject me.dll. Okay, and there it is. And as you can see in Notepad, Right in there, yep. Injectme.dll is loaded into Notepad, and that code has been executed. So it's hiding within Notepad, essentially. And if I look at Notepad, you see there, I get this little hello world message. Benign, again. All right, to wrap up, there are two big takeaways. First, DLLs are shared libraries that Windows loads into a process at runtime. They keep applications modular and efficient with their code. And that same DLL code can be reused by many parts of an app as Windows loads and unloads DLLs inside of RAM on demand. Secondly, DLL injection is a post-exploitation technique that abuses this inherent design feature. The attacker tricks a legitimate process into loading a malicious DLL, and that code then runs inside that victim's memory space. The attacker thus gains both stealth and potential persistence on the machine.